Feeling the need for change is at the heart of your ability to make it happen. Welcome to Turning Inward. I'm Vivian Carrasco, your midwife, teacher, and host for this podcast. Together, you and I are going to navigate the interior life, and we're going to do that by unearthing our personal truths, our own insight, and our inner knowing. These are weekly teachings that are brought to you by hard-nosed scientific evidence focused on spiritual direction with integrity and self-awareness. In 2 words, this is your inner work. Hi, Stephanie.
Hello, Vivian.
So excited to connect with you.
I know, I am as well.
One of the things that I love to do is I read through everything you sent. I'm gotta tell you, I'm super curious to hear the story in your own words about you stepping back and redefining, you said, everything.
Oh, yeah, absolutely everything. It really was everything. It's amazing. It is truly amazing.
So say more.
Well, I guess it all started. I went to college and got a couple degrees and immediately went and got a job in corporate America and loved what I did. Really thought that I was going to retire from there. I thought it was the place for me. And I worked like crazy. When I say that, I mean, I averaged 80 to 90 hours of work a week.
Wow.
I had gotten to the point where I was addicted to I call myself now a recovering workaholic because I used to feel guilty if I wasn't at work when the sun was out.
Wow.
So it was dark out when I went to work and it was dark out when I went home. And I had my son, and at about the same time I had my son, that company went public. And in the course of the company going public, the corporate culture changed, and I could no longer relate to the value system that was emerging with this new structure that was happening with them being public. And my values were questioned. I was asked to do things that were on the borderline of my values on a regular, daily basis. And that started making me sick, just tremendous amount of stress and pressure within that world of work. And my first hurdle in listening to myself was actually choosing to leave. Because I made a high 6-figure income. I had a team of 300 people. I traveled all over the States. I had Fortune 50 companies as my clients, crazy good benefits, and every single person that was in my family that knew me and friends thought I was crazy for thinking to leave. Because on the surface, everything was fabulous. On the surface, I had everything that you supposedly want to go get when you go out. All those material things were there for sure. Fortunately for me, I had what I call a blinding flash of the obvious when my son was still very young, and up with him in the middle of the night and thinking about all those things that I wanted to teach him. And the things I wanted to teach him, one of them wasn't to sell myself. And I realized that's what I was doing. So I'm really, really blessed in the fact that I had a conversation with my husband, shortly after that, and he was in full support of me leaving. So that was really helpful. But it was a scary conversation for me to have. So one of the really big, leaps of faith that we took in me listening to myself and what was really important and what was the right thing to do was the first time of leaving corporate America. But what actually occurred after that is I started my own business, doing what I love to do. And I also didn't heal that addiction to work, that workaholism. And so I created a different kind of trap for myself in the business that I created. I was still working a ridiculous number of hours. And now not only was I working a ridiculous number of hours, but I was doing it in a business I was trying to build. I had a toddler in tow. And not only when I left my job, we decided to move 2.5 hours south for a different cost of living, because with me walking away from that paycheck, we couldn't afford to live where we had been living. And so new community, toddler in tow, new house, new business, and I decided to do a bunch of volunteer work as well. So I created this world where I was not doing the same work that I did in that corporate space, but I was doing things that I really loved, Vivian, but it was too much because the one thing that I didn't do was take care of me. And that self-care wasn't there. And it all came to a head in 2009 when I was told I wouldn't see 2010. And at that point, I was so sick that my son was taking more care of me than I was taking care of him. Oh. And that was really super humbling. Yeah. He was in second grade at the time. You don't ask that of a second grader. He had to grow up really, really fast. But I was very, very ill. And in the process of getting well, I had to stop. Mm-hmm. I had to quit all my volunteer work. I had to quit all the boards that I was on. I had to quit any extra stuff that I was trying to do in, interior stuff, painting rooms or that kind of thing in the house. My client work went down to almost non-existent because I was existing, not living. Mm-hmm. And it was a forced quiet. But in that time, you don't want to wish horrible things on yourself. Yeah. And yet I look back at that time and it was one of the best things that ever happened to me because I had to be quiet. Mm-hmm. And in the quiet, I learned to listen, really listen, and tap back into myself. When I was younger, I was really good at listening to my inner knowing. And somehow through education and through corporate space, I started tuning myself out and started doing what I should do. And, you don't see me doing these air quotes, right? And mm-hmm. I should do.
we all should on ourselves. Right.
Well, I try. I am diligent about not doing that now. But in the process of getting well, in the process of being still, one of the things that happened with my illness was that actually TV made me worse. A lot of people will say TV makes you stupid, but in my case, it was literal. The flickering of the light impacted my adrenal glands. Uh-huh. And so it was actually dangerous to my health to watch TV. Weird, right? So that was another thing on me where I had to be quiet. I did a lot of reading. I did a lot of journaling. I did a lot of praying. I did a lot of meditation. And I did a lot of just staring at nature mm-hmm. in that time frame. But in that time frame, I learned really how to listen to me and really think about, okay, I walked away from corporate. I created this trap for myself within my business. Now what? And what I kept asking was, what am I supposed to learn from this? What am I supposed to learn from this? There's clearly something I'm supposed to learn from this. And my belief was that if I didn't learn it, it'd just happen all over again. Mm-hmm. So I want to learn it this time because mm-hmm. I don't want to do this again. And so I had to relearn a number of things. In the course of being sick, I learned that I was allergic to 33 different things that I didn't know I was allergic to, and they were all food. Wow. So when I say I had to relearn and redo everything, it was relearning how to listen to my body when I was eating foods that my body didn't receive as food. It was relearning how to shop for groceries. It was relearning how to rest. It was actually not even relearning how to rest. It was learning how to rest mm-hmm. because I was that go person. And that guilt from my corporate days hadn't healed. So I relearned how to sleep properly. I relearned how to rest properly. I relearned how to listen to my body. Mm-hmm. And not only listen to my body, but I also learned how to divorce certain ways of thinking. So I learned how to divorce hard work. Now, I still do a tremendous amount, but that's equal to me taking care of me, if mm-hmm. not me taking care of me even more important. I think one of the biggest lessons I learned through that entire experience is that if you don't take care of you, then you don't have as much of you to give to the people that really are important to you. And so now I look at self-care very, very differently than I did before. And I check in with myself on a regular basis. I even changed the way I make decisions. And it all involves checking in with myself now and my inner knowing more than that logical, analytical side of me that would like to make decisions.
So tell me that when you said you divorced hard work, my marmoset, which is like this little tiny curious animal inside of me, was like, whoa. So you said you divorced it as a way of thinking. And my hunch is that freedom from that belief allowed you space for a new way of being. So,
oh gosh, yeah.
So what was that process like for you?
So the process of divorcing hard work, and I intentionally choose the word divorce because for me it was something
it like very slammed powerful. Me. I was like, whoa.
Yeah, it wasn't like I healed myself from that or I let that go. I was like, no, it was a conscious choice for me because I grew up in the Midwest, and typical of Midwesterners, hard work is a very solid value. So that was a familial value. You know, it's a value I was taught by my mom and by my dad and by their parents, and it was a generational thing within my family. We are hard workers, and if you work hard, then you get what you want in life. What I found was that if I worked hard, I almost killed myself. And so the two definitions weren't matching for me anymore. And in part of that quiet time was trying to get to, how did I get here? You know, what? And I took full accountability. You know, I think that's the other thing, was that I didn't blame other people or why me or anything like that. It was like, okay, I created this, which means that I can uncreate it too. And that was part of the divorce process of saying, you know what, it was this addiction to overwork that put me in a position that was not pleasant. I mean, it didn't match anything else that was important to me in life. And I realized that I was given so many different blessings of skills, and yet what I had created was circumventing those. And I said, what if I build my business around things that don't cause resentment? And what if I build my business doing things that I just naturally do, that don't have to be hard? They're easy because I just naturally do them. I used to look at those things as, well, those aren't as legitimate because they're easy, which is silly. It really is silly. And yet a lot of us do that. And it wasn't a snap of the finger decision. It was really a process that I went through, looking at my different belief systems and which ones I wanted to keep, which ones I wanted to modify, and which ones I said, you know what, these just aren't working for me anymore. And a lot of really listening to me.
This is beautiful because you literally questioned what you believed. Now, you said it was very familial, right? It was part of your family.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And my experience going against anything that is that close to our hearts, you know, there's a real tension there and not feeling like you belong in that group anymore. Did you go through that same kind of dis-ease or, you know, uneasiness of everyone expects this from me?
Oh, huge. I was so worried people would be disappointed in me. Like that was, I said, I was a good kid growing up, but my parents didn't have to threaten punishment or anything like that. All they had to do was be disappointed in me and I'd be right in line.
Oh, yeah.
With, you know, I was that kind of kid. Just say you're disappointed and, oh no, that's horrible. And so I had that to overcome as well, is will I disappoint my family? Now, the reality is, and this is the part that I had to come to terms with, is how much of that hard work mindset that I had created was something my family really would have approved of versus how much of it was my childhood mind that had built it into what it was. And I really, you know, my family loves me completely and unconditionally. And they didn't like me being sick. In fact, you know, when I got honest with myself, you know, I remember hearing my mom say, Stephanie, slow down. But I didn't hear that at the time because I had these other things playing in my subconscious of, you know, you prove your value by working hard. So once I was able to really say, you know what, my family's going to love me no matter what I choose, it was easier to be able to let go. But I say recovering workaholic because I really think it's an addiction, just like, you know, alcoholism or something like that. It's a brain pattern that you create through habit over time. And so I treated it like that, you know, but there was certainly disease in thinking about, you know, what would I fit? Now that I'm on the other side, that's not a concern at all.
Yeah.
You know, they actually get more time with me now, which they love. Because before I didn't have time, I was too busy working.
So describe how you, like, it used to be hard and now you've chosen to do things that come easy to you. And that, in my experience, you might not even work less. In your case, I'm sure you do, because sustaining that amount of time, you know, head to desk is unsustainable. But you still work with the same probably sort of passion and intention and intensity, but just it doesn't drain you like the previous way. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And that's actually what I work with my clients on as well. It's interesting how like attracts like. And I have a lot of people that are, you know, working and working and working and working and working and not necessarily getting to where they want to go. And it's not always because you're not working hard enough. Oftentimes it's because you're not working on the right things or in the right way, or you're not giving your body enough time to rejuvenate. So then the work that you do isn't as powerful as it could be. I mean, that's one of the big lessons that I got out of all of this, is that if I'm tired, I take a nap.
Right.
Because if I push through, my end work product isn't as good anyway. So I can get stuff done faster now that I practice extreme self-care.
I have that same experience. There's a really popular story by Stephen Covey on sharpening the saw. Mm-hmm. But for someone who doesn't trust it, like, what is an example that you can share from your own experience? We're all sort of critical about this, right? I believe it because I know it. I know, sharpening the saw, being fully rested or being fully present can cut down an activity from maybe 5 hours to 30 minutes. But for someone who just doesn't trust that, what would you advise, or how would you guide them to sort of begin to go in that direction?
So one of the fields of study that I've spent a lot of time with is productivity. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people think of productivity as how much can you shove in an hour's time. That's not the way I look at productivity. Productivity is really about an even balance and spending time on the things that give you the biggest return for whatever goal that you have. And when it comes to, let's just look at rest, okay? Because self-care means a lot of different things, right? But one of the things that I mentioned was that I had to relearn how to sleep. I am a night owl by nature. I used to say it was easier for me to stay up until 4 a.m. instead of get up at 4 a.m. And when all this occurred, one of the things that I had to learn how to do was shut my brain off and be in bed by 10 p.m., which was hugely, hugely difficult for me at the time. Just really difficult for me at the time. And yet, one of the ways that I helped myself figure out how to do that was I started studying sleep. Mm-hmm. And the body, for anybody that wants to lose weight, sleep. For anybody that has foggy thinking, sleep. Your body heals itself when you're sleeping. So if you're sick, sleep. If you're not sick, sleep so that you don't get sick. Yeah. And I used to be an anti-sleep person. I was like, how
I'll
much
sleep
can
when
I
I die.
Right, yes, exactly. And you know what? That phrase frustrates me now, and it used to be my mantra. Uh-huh. Now I see that, I'm like, oh no, that's so unhealthy. There's all kinds of science behind how the brain functions and its coordination to sleep. So even if you are that I'll sleep when I die type of person thinking still, understand that the neurons in your brain are rejuvenated when you sleep. So if you're frying all of that while you're awake, being go, 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 then you're actually hurting yourself rather than helping yourself.
Yeah, this is where the saying, you're burning the candle at both ends.
Yeah, absolutely. Self-care, another example that I learned during that time period was water. They say you're supposed to take your weight and divide it by 2, and that's how many ounces of water you should drink every day. And when I first got that advice from the healthcare person that I was working with, I thought that he was trying to ground me. Because that's a heck of a lot of water.
Yeah, especially for me.
I was like, oh. But so then going back to the productivity side of things, I started just doing a little research on water. And, water is obviously good for your health, but our bodies are primarily water. Our brain is primarily water. And water is what conducts the electricity that allows our brain to function. So I like comparing it to a kitchen sponge. Those yellow or blue or light pink kitchen sponges that some people have, that when the water's all dried up, that kitchen sponge is as hard as a rock. It's and it's not pliable. You can't do anything with it. But when it's wet, it's very pliable, it moves, and you can function better. And that actually is true with the way that our brain functions as well. So if you have any instances of challenges with making decisions or foggy thinking or sleepiness, or even headaches. And I mean, there's so many people that suffer with headaches. It could be just simply because you're not drinking enough water. And those are just simple self-care things. I can tell you that every single client that I've ever worked with that's gotten the assignment, slow down or stop, has actually increased their business.
Yeah. And this, everything you're saying is literally like a new world of work. I think
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I see a whole new sort of evolution happening in especially the American industry. What you're talking about is really bringing us back to that foundation building, which so far is sleep, water, and really love. Like
Oh, gosh,
that
yes.
care and attention.
Absolutely. And for yourself. One of the things that I did not, I'm a very loving person, but I wasn't very loving on me.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I was kind of the opposite. One of the reasons that I pushed so hard was because I always felt like I had to prove my worth. When the reality is, Vivian, you, me, and everybody else, we're worth everything just because we're here.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to prove anything. And, self-love is so, I'm a business coach, right? That's what I do for a living. I help people grow their business. And yet we talk a lot about the inner stuff.
Yeah.
And how we look at our work, how we look at ourselves, how we look at the relationships we had. And love is definitely a part of that. Most definitely.
Yes. And so when people think that they need to build a skill on the outside or a new knowledge on the outside, that leveling up really does happen internally.
Oh, I call it working at the intersection of heart and head.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I used to only work with people on the outer game, your strategy, your tactics, your business model, that type of thing. And I found that there were things that my clients logically knew that they should do that they didn't do. And I finally gave myself permission. We're talking about using intuition, right? I finally gave myself permission to work with my clients on other things. And I had this exterior fear that they think I was woo-woo or they think I was weird. What I found is that people really want that. They really want to figure out what it is that's going on inside of them to help them be able to do what it is that they want to do. What's holding them back or what's going on inside. And it's that inner game that really helps you level up in all areas of your life, whether it's your business or your relationships or your health. The inner game makes a huge difference. And when you can listen to yourself, it's so much more powerful.
Yeah, when you decode that inner language. Because here's another thing that you and I have in common, Stephanie, is this path of looking outside, seeing like everything that everyone promised you would make you happy right in front of you.
Yeah.
And for me, I just felt guilty. So I was like, I have it all and I still want something else. I don't know what it is. So yeah, as a human being, we'll continually strive for the next thing, the next level of business, the next level of living, the next level of love. But we can be completely fulfilled and satisfied as we journey there when our mindset is right. Do you agree?
Yes, 100% agree. I was just reading an article today about happiness. And one of the things, it was tying neuroscience to happiness. And one of the things that they talked about was gratitude. And that's a mindset thing, right? And they actually said that the more that you practice gratitude, it actually changes your brain chemistry. And yet there's so many people that will just like, oh, well, yeah, I'm grateful. No, seriously, look at the different things, whether they're big or whether they're small. I'm grateful I'm able to have this conversation with you. I'm grateful that I have the technology to be able to do it because we're nowhere near close in physical vicinity.
You're right.
And yet those are things that you can overlook. And so just simply practicing that can make a big difference. But it's possible to be joyous and have goals too. I call it guilt-free freedom.
I love that. Guilt-free freedom.
Yeah, because I spent a lot of time in guilt and I made choices off of guilt. Even that workaholism piece of it was, feeling guilty if I wasn't at work. But the reality was when I was at work and working so much, then all the other things in my life that were important to me, I wasn't spending time with. I wasn't spending time with my husband or my parents or my son or friends or serving in the community. Whatever things are important to you, sometimes we let one value that's driven off of guilt drive us when it's really truly possible to make choices that allow you to be guilt-free.
Well, and the other choice that you made, the other insight that you had that I really want to highlight for the listeners is when you were there, sort of in the second time you created that environment of, hard work, you said to yourself, there's a lesson here because if I don't learn it, I'll repeat it.
Yeah.
And I love that, because I believe that the folks that you said like attracts like, the folks that are listening right now are the ones that feel like they're making a decision to give something up, and that's not true. So like attracts like, and what I find happening is, like, we don't want to blow something up and not do the right thing. Right? So we think that we have to sacrifice within ourselves. But in reality, if you turn inward and you fulfill yourself, it's that idea of a rising tide raises all boats. Maybe not immediately, maybe not right that second, but as you look back on, the choices that you made, and even for me, the choices that I made, I was able to do that without creating complete chaos. Because I did it consciously and mindfully, and I allowed that stillness to inform me.
Absolutely. I do intense private client work when I work with my clients. And again, I'm a business coach. And the first assignment we do, every single client resists it, is talking about how to intentionally choose who you're going to be in every day. Mm-hmm. And I have them do a lot of inner work and inner thinking about who have they been being versus who do they want to be. And I'm not talking about creating a persona or being somebody you're not. We all have different versions of ourselves. We have the scared and fearful self, or we have the empowered, powerful, enthusiastic person, and when you are intentional about how you want to carry yourself, your world changes. I tell the story about when I first started networking. I am an extroverted introvert, but I have a tendency to be pretty shy, although most people wouldn't know that about me. And so when I used to go to networking events, it was kind of like a junior high dance where I'd stand on the sidelines and just hope that somebody would come and talk to me. And that's not a way to network. It's not effective. I said I used to rather have a root canal than go do networking. And there was a moment where I decided that I was going to change who I was walking into those meetings. And I was no longer going to be fearful, self-conscious Stephanie. Mm-hmm. I was going to be a empowering, positive hostess. So even though I wasn't, hosting the event, I decided I'd go and look for other people that looked just as uncomfortable as I felt. And I'd seek them out because they probably wanted somebody to come to them just like I wanted somebody to come to me. And it worked like a charm. And it was just me being the better version of me than the scared, self-conscious Stephanie. And it's being intentional about the energy I want to bring to whatever it is I'm doing, and choosing it ahead of time rather than letting circumstances kind of default me into a certain way of thinking or being.
That is delicious.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That goes back to what you said when you talked and introed your divorce from hard work. It allowed you a new way of being. And this tool that you use to teach your clients allows them to dream or come up with a new way of being in what they do.
Right. And, I find through that work, when people do that work, and Vivian, I could share the workbook. I have it, and we can share it with your listeners if they'd like to go through it. It's one of my giveaways, so they're more than welcome to have it. I just work through it more intensely with my private clients. But in part of that, I ask, who are you being today? Mm-hmm. And who do you want to be? But then the next question within that book is, what's in there of that who do you want to be that you're shoulding yourself on? So the example I give is a client that I had was extremely introverted, but all of her family were extroverts. They were performers even, just very, very out there, extroverted performers. And here she is, this introverted in her family. And so when she first started working through this, she was like, well, I need to be, extrovert, and I need to be on the stage, and I need to be, entertaining, and I need to be the life of the party. But that's not who she was. That's not so she was shooting on herself. And so then we went back and we looked through a list again. I said, okay, how many of these are things you think other people think you should be versus who you want to be, who you really are? Because it's really about getting to the essence of the best version of you, not trying to become somebody you're not.
And you bring up a really good, a really important point. And as human beings, we model, it's monkey see, monkey do. And so what you're describing is, your clients probably do that first level of, this is what I see, so this is what I know. But you're taking them a little bit deeper into their heart so that they can see through the eyes of their heart. And that's the essence of them.
Yeah. And like I said, every single person that's ever been assigned that's been my private client has resisted it, because there are parts that you have to face. Even me acknowledging that my addiction to overwork was what made me sick. That was not an easy thing to acknowledge, that I did this to me. I'm accountable for this. And all of us have those things. But the really cool thing is that if you can start observing them without judgment, whatever you've done is what's made you who you are here today. Now, in this very moment, you can choose differently if you want to. But you do it without judgment. You do it just as a kind of a scientific observer of what's occurred. And that's a very different way of being as well, right? Because oftentimes we're really judgy of ourselves. Saying, no judgment. Don't let that come into it. Just observe. And now, what's your choice going forward?
Yeah, and I like that you pointed out that it's not an easy thing to do, but I have found even, that hard work is definitely worth it. Or that, and I don't want to say hard work, but getting to where that fear is, right? That's what makes it difficult, because you're moving towards what you love, and that's bringing up a different kind of fear than you're used to.
Yeah. It's interesting that you say that, because I made this distinguish of, I don't work hard, I do the hard work.
Ooh.
And a lot of people get that kind of, what does that mean? Well, I don't work hard because now I'm not focused on time. But if there are self-improvement things, if there are ways that I can get to know myself better, kind of like doing some of the exercises that I've mentioned here today, sometimes that's really easy emotionally. And sometimes we're faced with things that have happened in our past that have put us to where we are today that may not be easy to face.
Yes.
And so that is hard work, but it's not the same as working hard.
Yes. It's heartfelt work.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Stephanie, this has been a delightful conversation, and in the show notes is all the details on how to get to you. But please tell us, for those listening, where we can find you.
You can find me right on my site, which is stephaniecalahan.com. And if you look in the upper right-hand corner of my site, it has a number of different social media links. So I'm on a bunch of them. And it is really me. I don't pay somebody to do my social media for me. I love connecting with people in whatever way is most comfortable for you. So that's why I'm on a lot of different sites. And I'd love to connect.
I've made a habit of asking this question, and I love the answers that come up. If you had one only nugget or one piece of wisdom to share with the world, what would you share?
Listen to yourself, because you know more than what you think you do.
Beautiful. Thank you so very much.
Oh, thank you for having me on.
You're welcome.
If you want more help moving forward and breaking out of a negative mental pattern, I personally host an online community of practice for smart, successful women and a few super cool dudes that gives you more support, tailored training, and an unlimited professional coaching. Visit my digital home at viviancarrasco.com to learn more. With integrity and self-awareness. In 2 words, this is your inner work.